platforms. We have a ton to discuss today, including Brock Purdy's 3 interception performance. Does it matter? How much do you put into his 3 interceptions today? The running back 2 competition between Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell got a little bit more interesting after today's practice, including what Kyle Shanahan had to say in his post-practice press conference. Deebo Samuel, what's he doing? Updates on Brandon Aiyuk, Ricky Pearsall, and Drake Jackson. What are all those players doing? When are they going to see the field? Well, time will tell, and we'll talk about it all today. We'll also talk about the defense later on in the show, because I can tell you this, Renardo Green, rookie, he had himself a day. Want to quickly say what's up to Raphael5629ers, saying like and subscribe. You are correct, Raphael. Hope you're having a great Monday. Hope everybody out there is having a great Monday afternoon, night if you're on the East Coast. And the Niners are back at it today. Their first padded practice of the 2024 NFL season. Their first padded practice of 2024 training camp. It was the first day we got to see Ricky Pearsall. But as we always do, let's talk about who wasn't on the field today. And it's, the usual suspects. Trent Williams still holding out. Brandon Aiyuk still holding in. Nothing new in regards to either one of their contract situations. Although I will say Brandon Aiyuk still holding in, was back on the sideline today for practice, observing for the majority of it. And unlike last week where he was next to John Lynch, today he was actually having a conversation with former Niners Frank Gore and Dante Whitner. So some legends were in the house today. And I hope the conversations weren't contract related between those 3 people. I'm hoping it was more so of, how can I improve my game? What can I learn from you? But we all know the big conversation around Brandon Aiyuk is money, money, and more money. But again, no updates, still holding in. Trent Williams still holding out. There was a handful of players that had the day off, mainly Nick Bosa, Christian McCaffrey, Jake Brendel, Nick Bosa. They had veteran days off. Were on the sideline or in the gym, the team facility, weren't watching practice, although Nick Bosa was, weirdly enough, wearing the shortest shorts I've ever seen a man wear, a camouflage t-shirt and an orange backwards hat. So Nick Bosa certainly had himself quite the off day on the sideline. George Kittle did do some drills, did do individual drills, and so did Charvarius Ward, but neither one of them, neither Kittle nor Mooney Ward, took part in 11-on-11s. So a lighter day for 2 vets, both recovering, although should be 100% by now. Still going to work those 2 guys back slowly from their injuries and surgeries in the offseason, which brings us to the actual injury updates of today. Ricky Pearsall, first-round pick, 31st overall in this last year's draft, wide receiver. We saw him a little bit during OTAs and minicamp, although it was in the blue non-contact jersey for a while because he hadn't signed just yet. Now, finally back on the field for the first time in 2024 in pads for the first time. Did practice today, mainly doing individual drills, running routes against air, doing a little bit of stuff in the red zone, but again, did not take part in team drills. You can tell with the hamstring injury, they want to take things slow, not risk it, mainly because who knows how long the Aiyuk situation, how long that takes to get figured out. Jacob Cowing also has a hamstring injury. Tay Martin also has a hamstring injury. So the receiver room is also very light right now. Again, no Aiyuk, no Cowing, no Pearsall, and no Tay Martin. And with Pearsall coming back today with the hamstring injury, hopefully behind him, didn't do much. The plan is for the Niners to see how he feels after today's practice. If he holds up well and is okay for tomorrow, he should be a full go. That said, he was one of the 3 players fielding punts today. It was Ricky Pearsall, Trent Taylor, and Ronnie Bell. So a good sign there. You can tell maybe an idea as to where San Francisco might want to put him if he isn't starting or getting many reps as a wide receiver. Him being a punt returner could be a great spot for him in the early steps of his career. So Ricky Pearsall's back. You couldn't see much of him. Again, he didn't take part in team drills, but this kid, he's so good at running routes. Although against air, mind you, there was no one-on-ones today. But against air, he's crisp. There's a reason why they call him Slick Rick. There's a reason why they call this kid Yak Harlow. I mean, he is crisp as a Dorito. He is crisp as a kettle cooked Lay's chip. This kid knows how to run routes, and I'm hoping that maybe in a year or so, when he's bulked up, his body's right for the NFL, like Aiyuk took, you are going to see exceptional things from him. But in his first practice, wasn't too much to see. Yet the hopes are still high for a good rookie season from Ricky Pearsall. Hoping we can see more of him tomorrow when he actually supposed to be a full go in practice. Again, there was smaller updates. Jacob Cowing and Tay Martin, both receivers, going to take 7 to 10 days to recover from their hamstring injuries. We were unsure what Tay Martin's injury was before today. Obviously got some clarity on that. I think Tay Martin should be back in the next 5 days, so next week, along with Cowing. So they're going to miss at least 1 week of practice, which stinks, but isn't the worst thing in the world, because you talk about players that are going to miss a long time. Spencer Burford broke his hand. He apparently is seeing a specialist in the next day or so. They have not decided whether he needs surgery or not, but he was on the sideline today with a wrap on his hand. So not the greatest news for Spencer Burford, but otherwise, or in other words, kind of that stinks. But hopefully once he sees a specialist, they can get things figured out, and he's not going to be out for too long. Then there was Isaac Guerendo, who we got a rather big update today. Rookie out of Louisville, running back, hurt his hamstring a couple days ago in practice. Today, Kyle Shanahan said that he's going to miss multiple weeks in practice. So I won't say that ruins his chances to be this team's RB2, 3, but it definitely puts a damper on his odds to fight in the running back competition. He'll make the team, let's just be pretty honest there. He'll make the team, but in a running back room that has an undecided backup position, you really want to see Guerendo out there. He's going to miss valuable time in training camp and could maybe even miss a few preseason games if this thing lingers. So bad news for Guerendo and Burford. John Feliciano didn't practice today, but nothing has been said in regards to how serious it is. Just feels like it's a knee injury. Maybe he strained it. Hopefully he's back soon, which brings us to the biggest injury update of the day. It's one you don't want to hear. It's one that ultimately affects this defense, not in a big way, but it certainly hurts the depth of the edge rushing position, and that is of Drake Jackson, the third-year player. There is no timeline for his return, and he is not expected to take part in any of training camp. So you are not going to see Drake Jackson in training camp. You're not going to see him in the preseason. And ultimately, it feels like that he's not going to start the year on the active roster and will likely get put on the PUP list to begin the year, meaning he has to miss the first 4 weeks of the NFL season. The silver lining of this is that, yes, hopefully he can get healthy, but if they do put Drake Jackson on the PUP list, that San Francisco will not have to cut somebody to replace him. It's on the PUP list. You can sign somebody else to replace him without cutting another player. So if there is a silver lining, that's it, because other than that, it's really negative for Drake Jackson. Going into year 3, he hasn't proven much. Former second-round pick. A lot of high hopes. It just Drake Jackson, for whatever it's been, whether it's his body or the injuries or whatever it might have been, has yet to put things together. Obviously, injuries hurt your chances. If you can't play, you can't show what your worth is, right? So big blow for him, but more importantly, a really big blow for the team. And I didn't love what Kyle Shanahan had to say during his post-practice press conference. Now, you might say, what is he supposed to say in regards to the edge rusher room? I get it. He's being coy. He's not going to give away too much. he did say, though, that he was happy with the edge depth despite Drake Jackson not being healthy. He even said they knew that he wasn't this healthy and was likely going to miss training camp when training camp started. So they've known about this for a while. It's just now we're finding out about it. And again, I have to wonder, how can you be happy with the edge depth? I'm not saying the guys behind Nick Bosa and Leonard Floyd can't be good. Beal Jr., Yetur Gross-Matos being kind of the first two men up behind the starters, but it's a lot of unknowns. You have Nick Bosa, former defensive player of the year, Leonard Floyd, darn near a decade in the NFL, and one of the most consistent edge rushers in football throughout that time. But again, behind those two players, a lot of unknowns, a lot of unproven talent that could become proven this year, but just not like you weren't banking on Drake Jackson being something. You certainly were last year, but you were hoping he could at least be your third, fourth edge rusher on this roster. Now it's looking like they're going to have to add somebody. And, despite the expectations being that Yetur Gross-Matos and Robert Beal Jr. can contribute to this team, are we going to bank on those two guys? I like both of them. They have potential for sure. I think Gross-Matos can be really good playing inside and outside and give this team, an Arden Key-like season, while Robert Beal can be the situational pass rusher to help you get to the quarterback. You're kind of on third and longs, right? But that's, high expectations. That is the goal for them. That's not what they might be or could be or what they've even shown to be the past few years. And so a lot of unknowns. If it was me and I'm Kyle Shanahan and I'm John Lynch, I am scouring the edge rusher market. There are some guys out there. There's Yannick Ngakoue, who I know he's a name, but the worst edge rusher in football last year, basically. His name value, I get it's still there, but his production is just not what it used to be. I think, again, by the stats, by the win rates and everything else, the worst edge rusher in football last year for Chicago. Carl Lawson's out there, a lot of injuries tied to his name, but a lot of upside still there for a rather young player who, again, has just had a lot of lower body injuries that have cost him the last few seasons with the Jets. But this may be a time where you start calling teams asking for trades, because you're essentially walking into this year with now 4 edge rushers and that's it. And Nick Bosa is not going to play in the preseason. You'd prefer a player like Leonard Floyd doesn't play in the preseason. So Gross-Matos does, Beal Jr. does, Austin Bryant does, and other players you expect to get cut on a cutdown day playing the preseason. But you cannot walk into the 2024 regular season with 4 legit guys or 2 legit guys and 2 question marks behind them. You have to find somebody else. And maybe come week 4 or 5, Drake Jackson's good to go and you're feeling pretty good about yourself. But guys get hurt all the time. And sure, you can find a player for a week or 2. No one's asking for, an all-pro next to Nick Bosa again, outside of Leonard Floyd, right? You're just wanting somebody for depth. I would not be shocked if, whether it's after cutdown day or after, week 2, game 2, game 3 of the preseason, they work a trade out and they find somebody else, because this edge room is already really thin, and you don't want to risk any thinner there. It's not good. Like, this room is an average sized body. The last thing you want to be is anorexic going into the year. You want to be plump and thick, and you want to look like the woman from Norbit. You don't want to be Eddie Murphy's character in that movie. You want to be plump and you want to be fat with the PH, right? So right now it's not any of those things, and it's really, really thin, and they're going to have to find somebody before the year starts. That's it for the injury updates, which brings us to what happened in practice today. I'll just be blunt. The offense sucked today. The offense was not good. The offensive line continues to struggle. Again, no Trent Williams, no Jake Brendel, no John Feliciano, and no Spencer Burford. All 4 of those guys have started games for you, or cemented as starters, especially in Trent Williams' case. Not good, just bad. Jalen Moore, not great. Aaron Banks was, he's fine, but he himself in the post-practice press conference said, You're only good as the guy next to you. You're only good as your weakest link, which I'm sure for him is like, I'm kind of out here struggling, guys. I got Jalen Moore and I got Ben Barch and Nick Zakel playing center. I look bad because they look bad. And so then you add in guys like Dominic Pooney, who he's been fine, but you want to see what he can do. Like, if Dominic Pooney is your weakest link, that's fine. He's a rookie, right? You expect that. You don't want that when he's playing, with Jalen Moore and Ben Barch and Nick Zakel and Colton McKivitz and those guys. You want him playing with the starters and being the weakest link. But right now, I don't think he's the weakest link at all. It's more so players like Nick Zakel, like Ben Barch, like Jalen Moore. I mean, there's Jalen Moore, despite not being as bad as I think people think he is, he ain't great. And there's a handful of times where he's been just annihilated by a bull rush, whether it's Gross Matos or somebody else, just blowing right by him or blowing right through him. And if that happens to a left tackle during the regular season or during the preseason, night to your quarterback. So it's not been great so far. Brock Purdy wasn't good today. I will say it's not as bad as people it's not as bad as the 3 interceptions would indicate. I think one of those at least was not his fault. And you have to keep in mind that, yes, Brock Purdy today threw 3 interceptions. Are they a big deal? They're interceptions. Turnovers are turnovers. Do they matter that much? Maybe more so to you than myself, or lesser to you than myself. I just think that when you're there, when you know the context of the interceptions, again, they're interceptions. They're not good. It doesn't matter how they happen. You start to realize that maybe it's not all his fault. The first one today certainly was his fault, though. He threw one. He was throwing a pass to Braden Willis, and he overthrew it, and Lenore was there to pick it off. Now, was it a play where you would like your tight end to play a little defense? George Kittle's great at this, where jump balls in the air, he may not get to it, but he's going to play defense. He's going to play rim protector for you and make sure the ball is not picked off. Braden Willis is not that guy just yet. And so, while it is Brock Purdy's fault in this case, you want a little more for your tight end. But again, Brock Purdy overthrowing a football for an interception is not the best look for a star quarterback. Then you get to Fred Warner's interception, and this one was not Brock Purdy's fault. This one bounced off of Logan Thomas's hands, which Brock Purdy was scrambling. If it was in game, could it have been a sack? Likely. That said, he also could have scrambled. You don't really scramble in practice, so you're kind of forced to throw the football, which we know Brock Purdy's got some pretty fast legs on him. So this one may have not been an interception come the regular season, but it was a pick off of Logan Thomas's hands. Fred Warner picks it off. That's number 2 of the day. Then the last pick was, again, Brock Purdy's fault. He forced the ball to Deebo Samuel, which George Odom got the interception, stepped right in front of it, picked it off. But I will say this, no matter who the quarterback is in training camp, you have to realize this. When you're not there, when you're in the stands or you're in the media, the players are forced to throw the ball. They're forced to make a play. Yes, they have reads. Yes, they have, people they're supposed to target and plays they're supposed to run and this, that, and the other. But you can't run. You're forced to throw the football. When the play breaks down, like you can't get sacked, you can't get touched. And so really, you can look at 3 interceptions and say, wow, it's terrible. And yeah, it's not great, but it's not that big of a deal. It really is not that big of a deal. And I think, when you're looking at what Brock Purdy did today compared to previous practices, obviously his worst day. And I think, a lot can be made of the struggles today, which is fair. When you throw 3 picks, when the offensive line's not great, when the running game isn't that good, that's fair. You can criticize that all you want. But I think when you realize who they didn't have on the field, you also start to understand, okay, decision-making, maybe you can excuse that because you have to throw the football. You have to make a play. It's practice. It's training camp. You're training other people. You're training yourself. Come on. That's what it's there for. But no Christian McCaffrey, no George Kittle. in team drills. No Brandon Aiyuk, no Trent Williams, no Jake Brendel, no John Feliciano, no Spencer Burford. I mean, come on. When you're missing 2 of your top 4 targets, 3 of your top 5 targets, your star left tackle, your starting center, and you're likely potentially starting guard or center in John Feliciano, and you're playing third stringers. It's not going to fare well for your quarterback, not going to fare well for any quarterback. And again, when your offensive line's not playing well and you're under pressure all day and you're supposed to force plays, it's not great. But again, it's 3 picks. Tomorrow, probably going to be a lot cleaner, I would assume so, from the offense. But the offense missing, I don't know, what is that? 6 people, 6 starters, right? The defense only missed 2 starters today. Nick Bosa and Charvarius Ward. So 6 starters compared to 2 is a big difference. Certainly gives you some context, or at least gives you some context as to what was happening at practice. And again, the offensive line has not been healthy and frankly has not been good. They were better today. Pads are on, performing well, but man, it just not been a good sign from the offensive line. They need Trent back. They need Brendel back. They need Feliciano and Burford back, mainly Trent back of that grouping. But, when you're having Ben Barch and Nick Zakel split reps at center and Dominic Pooney, a rookie, start at right guard, it's not a great sign. Or what they've been showing isn't great. You're not going to have this chemistry. You're not going to see the best of your quarterbacks, the best of your running backs, and the best of your wide receivers. You're just not. It's not the best talent. It's not the best talent you have on the roster out there on the field. And I think as camp progresses, as training camp progresses, as preseason progresses, and you gear up for the regular season, you're going to see all that kind of flip. The offense gets healthy. Guys get back on the field. You're not going to see 3 interception days from Brock Purdy. You're going to hear better things. And I would expect tomorrow better things from Brock Purdy. That said, there was a couple positive things from Brock Purdy today. Again, wasn't a great day, but wasn't the worst day in the world. Brock Purdy did find Trent Taylor for a nice touchdown, had pressure in his face, was avoiding the pressure, turned around, found Trent Taylor in the end zone for a nice touchdown, threw a dart right to him. So it wasn't all bad from Brock Purdy, but there has been one thing that I do think is maybe being a little, under talked about, I guess you could say, or overlooked by some people. And I think it's a good and bad thing. I think Brock Purdy in the first 5 practices in 6 days has overthrown a lot of receivers and tight ends. And I think it's a good thing. The first part of that, the why it's positive, is because the arm strength is obviously there. He's bulked up. He's stronger. You can tell maybe there's a little more oomph behind his throws, whether it's a quick out or a slant or a deep crosser or a go ball down the field up the seam. He's overthrowing some players. Now, that's good because the arm strength is clearly there. It's clearly better than it was last year. The bad thing is he's not hitting those throws. He's overthrowing those players. So you're hoping once camp progresses, you get to feel the ball back in your hands, and we talked about last week how Brock Purdy looked phenomenal. I think you're going to see and certainly hear a lot more of the phenomenal Brock Purdy days compared to the bad days, which today was a bad day compared to those really, really, really good days he's had. So I wouldn't look too much into the interceptions. Did they happen? Yes, but not a great day, but not much to talk about in regards to Brock Purdy. He threw 3 picks. It sucks. He'll move on. We'll move on. That said, Joshua Dobbs has put together 2 back-to-back good practices. He was 5 of 8 today. He was pretty consistent in the red zone, which is really good to see. Had a touchdown pass to Juwan Jennings today. So again, Joshua Dobbs picking things up as he gets more comfortable in the offense. Good to see. And we're starting to kind of see the quarterback 2 competition level things out as the pads have come on, which brings us to the other offensive competition, not on the offensive line, but in the backfield. Running back number 2. Who was going to be Christian McCaffrey's backup? It's a big question. It's a big ask. The hope is that you rarely ever have to use this guy. In the last 2 years or year and a half, you haven't had to use a backup running back. McCaffrey has been healthy. He's played every single game. But with Shanahan and the brass up top saying they want to, I guess you can say, limit McCaffrey's touches between the tackles or certainly save him, uh, and not utilize him so much to preserve his legs for later in the year. We are seeing Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason turn the heat up on the running back 2 competition. Had both those guys had one big run apiece today to begin practice. Unfortunately, that was kind of it on the ground. But we've heard a lot of Shanahan talking about Jordan Mason, heard a lot about Chris McCaffrey, gushing about Jordan Mason's progression this year. Jordan Mason, for the first time in his NFL career, feels like he's getting an actual opportunity to be the backup running back, which fans have been clamoring for, at least for last season or the duration of last year. He's been getting a lot more opportunities in the passing game, getting more reps with the 1s and the 2s, and it feels like he's no longer relegated to you are going to just be a special teamer. Even Kyle Shanahan said today when asked about him, said, I'd say nothing against Elijah Mitchell. There's no fall off in Elijah at all. But Jordan Mason runs at a very high level. And it feels like there has been this kind of shift in Kyle Shanahan's mind of, look, the last couple of years, Elijah Mitchell bursts onto the scene. Then you get McCaffrey, and you feel like you have that 1-2 punch. McCaffrey's been the offensive player of the year, so Mitchell hasn't played much due to injuries, which is a big case against him. But the way they're talking about Jordan Mason is that Elijah Mitchell's job as the backup is not safe. And it's a good thing. I think Jordan Mason brings something else to the roster now. That doesn't mean they're going to trade Elijah Mitchell. I understand the want to do so. I understand you can make it make sense. Elijah Mitchell for a 5th-round pick, Elijah Mitchell for a 4th-round pick. I think Tampa Bay makes a lot of sense for Elijah Mitchell. They have Rachaad White out there. They signed a few guys, drafted a guy, but I think Elijah Mitchell would give them something they currently don't have, which would be a starting caliber running back that could go for 4,000 yards in a season. If he stays healthy, mind you. But I think what this does is ultimately it hurts Isaac Guerendo. It really does, because that 4th running back job, that 3rd running back job, like had Guerendo, or if Guerendo was healthy, there's a real chance if Guerendo's healthy and Mason is pushing Elijah Mitchell for his job, and they like whether it's Cody Schrader or Patrick Taylor Jr. enough, that would open a door to trade Elijah Mitchell. Well, Guerendo's not healthy. So it kind of feels like, no matter how it's stacked up, it's going to be Chris McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, or Elijah Mitchell, then guys like Cody Schrader and Patrick Taylor until Guerendo can get healthy. So the competition is good to see. I think it's overdue. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think in year 3, it seems to be things are clicking for Jordan Mason more so than they have been in years prior, which makes sense. He's 3 years into his NFL career. He's flashed a lot the last year or so, whether it's against Seattle or against the Cleveland Browns for a nice touchdown run. I think he brings, what Mitchell doesn't. Mitchell's feisty. He's strong. He won't go down. Mason's big and he's bulky and he's powerful and can be a power back whether it's, they called him the closer last year. He didn't close anything. Let the man get 5 to 10 carries to end the ball game and put the game away for you if you have to. He's a good player. And I think if the big difference will, yes, be health for sure. But I think ultimately you look for whoever fumbles the most. Preseason, training camp, if fumbles become an issue for either one of those players, it's going to kill them. It's going to ultimately ruin their chance for the RB2 job. You fumble, you do not play. That is the Kyle Shanahan way. And I think if Kyle Shanahan sees one of these two guys get the ball up, it's over. Truly is over. Bobo says here in the comments, when Mason was in the game last year, he looked amazing. you're right. And I think ultimately, I think he wins the job. Obviously, it's one day of padded practice, but I think Mason to me is more built to be this team's RB2 than Elijah Mitchell is. And I think in a perfect world, Grendo's healthy, Cody Schrader makes the team, and you have Mason be your RB2, and you can trade Mitchell. But again, Grendo's not healthy, so it kind of puts a damper on that conversation. But good to see Shanahan finally believing in Jordan Mason to be potentially this team's running back number 2. Deebo Samuel had probably the best camp of anybody so far, maybe outside of Brock Purdy, and even then I'd argue Deebo Samuel has been head and shoulders this team's best player through 5 practice days and 6 total days of training camp. Again, today, a couple of big plays, end around 15, 20 yards downfield. Brock Purdy was his lead blocker on that play, which I'm sure wasn't designed, but Brock Purdy definitely unafraid to be a gamer. Then you look at some other plays he had. Taylor Hawkins, young safety, was draped all over him. Deebo Samuel came down with the football, and there was a play. It may have been the end around, if I'm remembering correctly, but he and Jair Brown came together. Loud pop. It was like pop. And you're like, oh God, like that wasn't supposed to happen, right? Pads are on, but that's your teammate, right? And Deebo Samuel popped back up, and you can just tell there is a level of ferociousness he's playing with. And it's to a point where, you don't worry about him and his health, but you do kind of worry about Deebo's already a very physical player. And you do kind of worry about, come week 1 of the NFL season, is he going to be so amped up? You're at home against the Jets, a team that many people would pick, to be the NFC contender for the Super Bowl. And it's Aaron Rodgers, right? It's to a point where it's like, Deebo, it's training camp, my friend. Take a day off, rest your body. I don't need you, or as Laurie Matthews says, Brock Purdy taking hits in training camp on the first day of padded practice. But ultimately or otherwise, a really good day from Deebo Samuel, which brings us to, I think, my biggest surprise of the practice day. Cam Latu. Some might call him, I would call him a guaranteed cut at this point, or at least a practice squad player for sure. But as much as I rag on Cam Latu, I'm not going to be someone who doesn't give him credit when it's due. Today, Cam Latu had a pretty nice practice. Had his first catch of training camp and the OTA period, through 5 practices, but had his first catch in training camp, had a nice deep crosser from Brandon Allen, caught it in stride, got a couple extra yards. It was a nice play from the young tight end during warm-ups, or kind of the red zone warm-up drills they were doing. Had a really nice one-handed catch. And it's like, brother, you cannot go from one-handed catches like you are, or like you were today, and then look at last year, you had bricks for hands. You had butterfingers. And it's like you walk back to the huddle saying, I shouldn't have had that popcorn like Brewski from the longest yard. But then you want to make one-handed catches. It's like, if Cam Latu can just be consistent, he ain't got to be tight end 2. He ain't got to be tight end 3. Be tight end number 4 as you continue to learn the position. Contribute in some way. And so today, good thumbs up day for Cam Latu. Liked what I saw. A lot of ground to gain, but I liked what I saw from the young tight end Cam Latu. Bobo, going back to the fumbling conversation we had about Jordan Mason and Elijah Mitchell. CMC fumbled a few times, but he got the playlet after that. Well, I mean, it's Chris McCaffrey. I mean, if Chris McCaffrey was a running back number 2 trying to prove himself, a different conversation, but it's Chris McCaffrey, the offensive player of the year, and a guy who was carrying your offense the majority of the season. So, I get what you're saying, but it's Chris McCaffrey. It's not a, guy fighting for a spot on the depth chart. It's Chris McCaffrey. You're just not going to bench him. That said, it just feels like that the RB2 is going to come down to fumbles. If you don't fumble, probably going to win that job. But going to the defensive side of the ball for a second, this defense, man, it's good. It's through 5 or 6 days, but it's good. And I think there were a lot of question marks. And obviously, again, it's not even an actual game yet. So time will tell how they look when it actually matters. But if history proves right, this roster didn't get really any worse. In fact, you can argue it got better in regards to durability, which I would argue that for sure. And on a day where, there's no Dre Greenlaw, obviously, there's no Mooney Ward, there's no Talanoa Hufanga, and in previous days when you haven't had some of those players, this team continues to take the ball away, continues to force and create turnovers. Yes, the defensive line's getting pressure. Good to see. Mainly beating backups, mind you, but still getting pressure. And they're forcing takeaways. They had 3 more interceptions today, all from Brock Purdy, mind you, but 3 more takeaways. Through 5 practices, they have 8 total takeaways. You can't ignore that. This isn't like it's been, a turnover, show for the offense. Yes, today was for Brock Purdy, fine, but it's not been every single day. Every single day. I think, with Nick Sorensen, we talked about, he is the guy that was leading those ball meetings, as Lori Matthews says here in the comments. I think they're focusing much more on takeaways with the new defensive coordinator, Nick Sorensen. I think you're right. I think Nick Sorensen, having led those ball meetings, those takeaway meetings with the defense the past few years, there is, at least in the first, couple days of practice, a much more or a higher focus on getting the ball back, attacking the ball, being near the ball. This team last year was already great at getting the ball back. That's why they won so many games. You get the ball back, your offense scores more points, you win more games. Duh, right? We don't know what it'll look like come the regular season, but through 5 practices, you have 8 takeaways. That's really good. I think if my math is correct, as Bobo might say, it's Terrence Howard math. If my math is mathing again, I think that's like 6 interceptions. Really, really good sign. Fred Warner's on the action, Malik Mustafa a couple times already. Darrell Luter Jr., George Odom, Lenore today. Like, this secondary and even the linebackers without Dre Greenlaw have been getting the ball back. Sure, is it a knock on the offense? Yeah, it is. The offensive line's not been playing well. Your quarterback gets pressured. But I think it's also receivers are covered well. Secondary's playing well. Today alone, Isaac Yiadom, really good. Again, no Mooney Ward out there practicing. No cornerback number 1. San Francisco rolled out a trio of Diamador Lenore and Isaac Yiadom playing on the outside with Renardo Green playing nickel. That's new. We haven't seen that yet. That's interesting. How's that going to hold up? Today, it was really good. Isaac Yiadom, very, very physical player. There was a play today on the Fred Warner interception where Yiadom is guarding Logan Thomas. And while, yes, the ball hits Logan Thomas's hand, it was Isaac Yiadom's physicality that causes the interception, that forces the interception. That's stuff that is the difference in big games. That's stuff that wins you a Super Bowl. That's stuff that wins you a playoff game. You have to do those things to win in the NFL. And I think for a player like Isaac Yiadom, we always talk about the Saints. The offense isn't good usually for them. Post Drew Brees, it's been Jameis Winston, Derek Carr. There's been a consistent effort on defense. Whether it's, Demario Davis or, the great defense they've had over there, Cam Jordan, for a long time. They always play good defense. Usually their defense is carrying the offense. Isaac Yiadom was a part of that defense. And the one thing about the Saints defense, they're physical. And I think Yiadom brings that over to a secondary that likes these feisty cornerbacks that want to get their hands dirty, sure. Do you get called for a holding call here or there? Yeah, they do. Mooney Ward. How many times last year you see the flag? You go, oh, what's it this time? Illegal contact downfield. The Niners are unafraid to get called for holding or penalties downfield. As long as you're a physical cornerback that can take the ball away, can shut down the opposing receivers and stop the opposition's offense, you're going to play. That's why Lenore has gotten a shot and taken off because of it. He's smaller, sure, but he's feisty. Not just in coverage, at the catch point, too. Mooney Ward, UDFA from the Chiefs, builds his way up because he's feisty and he plays angry and he plays smart. Little grabby sometimes, sure, but he likes to use his body and use his hands in coverage to bump receivers off their routes, to aid him in mirroring guys. And I think for a player like Isaac Yiadom, who I'm sure fans don't know a lot about, but he's a damn good cornerback, really good. And I don't know how he was a free agent. I don't understand, the way he plays just fits San Francisco. Obviously, again, we shall see what they do in regards to their cornerback rotation come week 1. But, it's a really good sign for a team that has kind of been looking for that third cornerback to complete their trio. 1 year it's Sherman and K'Wan Williams, and Emmanuel Mosley comes up. The next year, Sherman gets hurt, then Mosley gets hurt, then it's Jason Verrett, right? Then it's Lenore and Mooney Ward. Well, then who's that third guy? Mosley gets hurt, and then Ambry Thomas comes in. And there's always been that one weaker link. I think Yiadom, there's always going to be a weaker player in that room, but I think Yiadom certainly clears that gap or closes that gap in regards to the fall off from cornerback 1, 2 to 3. And it's a really good thing. And you could argue that, at times Yiadom could be this team's, cornerback number 2 on days. And I think that, what we've seen so far is really, really good to see. And thankfully it doesn't stop there. Renardo Green working with the first team today at nickelback. And I think it was Nick Sorensen that said during OTAs, they wanted to teach him nickelback first because he already played outside. And he's played nickelback a lot so far in camp and OTAs. And I think that he's probably more comfortable on the outside, playing it at FSU a lot more than playing nickelback, obviously. But nickelback today had a fantastic pass defense to dislodge a would-be touchdown throw by Brock Purdy to Juwan Jennings. And I think, on a defense for a young player where the hope is that you can start this year, the hope is that you can, replace a player, whether it is in 1 year's time, it's Mooney Ward or Lenore, or at least, again, in year number 1, you are taking a player like Isaac Yiadom's job, or if someone goes down, you can step in without a big fall off. You have to finish your plays. And I think, the effort was a big issue in the playoffs last year. I think we've seen, at least today, Renardo Green is a finisher. You have to finish plays. You have to finish your reps. The Niners are one of the few teams that they monitor their players and they take that so seriously. They monitor your effort. Are you going 100% of the time? Renardo Green, at least today, was going 100%, the 100% of the time. It was a really nice play. And whenever you can break up a touchdown pass, even better. You saved your defense from being scored on. That's good stuff. It's a good impression to make on your defense, the media, and the fan base, and certainly on your head coach and new defensive coordinator. But he didn't just play nickel. Again, did play some outside as well. But a really good day from the defense today. 3 more interceptions, physicality, getting pressure. I just hope that soon San Francisco finally has their full offense on display. Obviously, guys take vet days off. That's fine. I'm cool with that. But you can hype up the defense a lot, which we should. They are performing well and producing a lot. But when there's no Trent Williams, there's no Brandon Aiyuk, there was no George Kittle today in team drills, no Christian McCaffrey, no Jake Brendel, no John Feliciano, no Spencer Burford. Things are going to sway towards the defense's favor. And usually the defense starts out training camp with the advantage. The offense is usually all based on timing. When your timing's off, the defense is going to make plays and look better. The timing's off right now. Some things are off. Some of that's health. Some of that's just some rust. And I think as training camp progresses, guys get healthy back in the building, we will see what these guys can truly do. And I think, we will see the offense start to kind of take some ground back. And I would not be shocked if in a week we're hearing Brock Purdy threw for 3 touchdowns. The offense had their best day of practice, and Joshua Dobbs and Brandon Allen looked pretty good too. McCaffrey looked great, and we're going to start to hear the rumblings of the offense and taking some ground back and playing a lot better once they can get healthy and kind of find their rhythm again, because that's been the biggest issue. Health, and there's been no rhythm. No rhythm on the offensive side of the ball. I do want to mention Jake Moody. Wow. Jake Moody has been house money. If I was Tom Cruise and Jerry Maguire, it'd be show me the money, because Jake Moody has been money. Today, again, perfect 4 for 4, hit from 38, 42, 43, 48. I'm pretty sure Jake Moody has missed one field goal the entirety of training camp. And if, again, my math is mathing correctly, and I can do simple addition, I'm pretty sure, again, I'll do it in my head right now, pretty sure he's like 18 for 19, or he's like 20 for 21. He's been darn near perfect in training camp. Really, really good. But ultimately, it was a really good defensive day. I think that, defense starts faster than the offense does, like Rob Smith says here. Every year, defenses always start faster. The offense comes in later. I think that, again, the defense really good today. I think if you're a Niner fan and seeing players like, Eric Armstead leave and Dre Greenlaw being injured and Talanoa Funga being hurt, I think there can be some solace of look, defense has not missed a step. Now, obviously, once they play against the ones consistently and you're playing 60 minutes of football inside Levi Stadium or on the road, screaming crowd, with a real scheme and a real game plan, that all changes, right? Who will you be then? You're going to face more pressure. Are you going to fall apart, or are you going to be a diamond? I think San Francisco's defense so far is certainly more diamond-like in the first 5 practices, while the offense is kind of searching for answers still. Had some really good stuff. Don't want to be negative about it entirely, but today, their worst day by far. And their worst day because the starters struggled. You expect the 2s and 3s to not be as good as the 1s. The 1s struggled today. That was the biggest issue. But I think ultimately it'll round itself back out. Bobo says here about Jake Moody, we'll see if Jake Moody can get it done with the stadium full of screaming fans late in the playoffs. I mean, you're right. I mean, just because you're perfect in practice or near perfect in practice doesn't mean you're going to be good come the regular season. Guys get the yips, guys get nervous, guys get scared, guys just aren't good. There's always a practice squad hero, always a preseason breakout player that is never good. Remember Thomas Clayton? Remember Jalen Hurd? What was it Kamir Bibbs or whatever his name was a long time ago, like in 2013, whatever it was? Or there's always that one guy you're like, who is this guy? He better make the team, and then he gets cut. Wonder why? Not that good. So I think, for Jake Moody, one thing last year for him was that he didn't get to go into Levi Stadium and get some kicks until after Taylor Swift left her tour, the Eras Tour. He didn't get to kick in Levi's because of her for a while. And oddly enough, the season ends with a blocked field goal and a Taylor Swift kissing Travis Kelce. So talk about a full circle moment there for Jake Moody. But, God, Taylor Swift sucks. But I think getting him into Levi Stadium early, not having to deal with Zane Gonzalez and splitting kicks anymore, it's all him. And I think that's a good thing for him. Obviously, you wanted last year to end differently, and you really struggled to a point of, is this guy going to be here? And yes, Laurie Taylor had the whole thing planned out. The whole thing was schemed to screw Jake Moody in the preseason to make sure he missed kicks in the Super Bowl. Hey, man, that is a story written for itself right there. But I think with no kicker in the room besides himself, no competition now, no need to worry. Let's get Jake Moody some Levi Stadium kicks, because that's the big thing. You can kick in practice all day. Jake Moody was really good in practice last year. Then came the preseason, and it was like, oh, what's going on here? And there was a lot of talks from fans. He's a bust. You want to trade him? Don't even kick the ball. Just go for it. So, I think that, Jake Moody's going to be just fine. Now, I am also someone that said my bold prediction was San Francisco has to bring somebody in to have a competition with him. But I'll, again, gladly say that through 5 days of practice, I was wrong. I will be wrong. I will eat the bowl of crow if it means the best thing for the San Francisco 49ers and for players on the team to succeed. But again, not the greatest day for the offense. Pretty good day for the defense. And I'm hoping that tomorrow, day number 2 of pads, we get a little pushback from the offense. Hopefully soon we get freaking Trent Williams and Brandon Aiyuk back, and we can start to rock this thing how we want to and get healthy. I will say this though, going back to Drake Jackson for a second, Colin Cowherd, I think, said today that, watch out for San Francisco the next 48 hours. I don't know what he meant by that. But I do think that with what San Francisco needs, I think their biggest need right now, which is surprising, is depth edge rushers. And this goes back to trades. Don't be shocked. I'm not saying it'll happen, but just don't be shocked if something comes up or you hear something of they reach out to that team. And honestly, if you're shooting for the stars, call the Jets about Hassan Reddick. That is a crazy thing to do, and I'm not saying do that. I'm just saying if you want to get nuts and crazy and bizarre, why not? But time will tell. We shall see. I do think San Francisco eventually has to make a move for an edge rusher, but again, we're just throwing out some crazy stuff because Drake Jackson's going to be out for what seems like the first 4 weeks of the NFL season, which puts a lot more pressure on Nick Bosa, Leonard Floyd, mainly guys like Gross Matos and Beal to perform because there's nobody else back there. But it's all I have for you today. Thank you to Rob Smith, Lori Matthews, Bobo in the comments, Raphael. You guys are the best. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. It is the easiest and freest way to help the show. If you're listening on the audio platforms, subscribe, tell your friends. Word of mouth is the best way for podcasts to grow. And if you'd have some extra free time on your day, you're laying in bed talking to your wife, your boyfriend, your husband, whatever it is, why don't you go on the podcast and leave a review? Give us 5 stars. Tell us what you think of the show. If you liked it, you loved it. Are you on the Moody bandwagon? What should San Francisco do about Drake Jackson? Put that in the review. Put that down below in the comments. You can follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the Twitter. 49ers.access is the Instagram. And if you want to see your Niners play, use our promo code 49ersaccess. 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com and save yourself $20 off your first purchase. I'm never going to ask you for money. I'm only going to give you a free discount. That's how things work here. I give you free things. Go watch Niners play. Enjoy a beer on me with that $20 you save by using our promo code at SeatGeek.com. Practice tomorrow. Padded practice number 2. Come back right here. Same place, same time, same bat place, same bat channel, if you will, for 49ers Access with myself reacting to tomorrow's day number 7 of Niners training camp and practice. It's going to be crazy. Hope it's a good day. Hope the offense bounces back. I'm hoping talking about all the great things that happen for the offense tomorrow. But we shall see. Time will tell. And again, as always, my name is Sterling Bennett. And until next time, stay faithful.